I never imagined my quiet Monday morning would end with my wedding photo smashed against the concrete, and my lace blouses fluttering across the lawn like wounded birds. But that's exactly what happened the moment my daughter-in-law realized she was suddenly $100 million richer. "Get these old things out of here," she screamed, her voice slicing through the cool daylight as she hurled another box over the porch railing. China shattered. Letters from my husband scattered like fallen leaves. Neighbors peeked over hedges, whispering, watching the spectacle unfold as if I were the villain in my own story. The sun was barely rising, soft and golden, completely at odds with the cruelty happening on my front lawn. My home, the one I built with my late husband, looked like a garage sale hit by a hurricane. And there she stood in the middle of it all. Hair curled, lipstick perfect, holding the lottery ticket as if it were a royal decree. "You don't fit into our millionaire life anymore," she spat, brushing her hands together as though dusting me off the earth. I stood very still. At my age, stillness is mistaken for weakness, but that morning it became my armor. My heartbeat didn't race. My voice didn't shake. I simply looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I had opened my door to years ago, and asked quietly, "Did you read the name on the back of the ticket?" For a split second, her smile faltered. A shadow flickered behind her eyes, panic, recognition, fear. I couldn't quite tell which. But then, just as quickly, she masked it with that same glittering confidence she'd worn since dawn. If you're hearing my story and feel even a fraction of what I felt in that moment, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss stories like mine. Sometimes the truth needs witnesses. A taxi rolled to the curb, the engine idling softly. My hands trembled as I gathered the only bag she'd allowed me to keep, but my voice stayed steady. I turned once more toward the house that had sheltered 3 generations, then stepped into the cab without a word. Because the moment she threw me out of my own home, she had no idea she'd already lost. My name is Eleanor Whitfield, and at 69 years old, I thought I'd already lived through the hardest chapters of my life. I survived the loss of my husband, Arthur, when I was 57. I survived the loneliness that settled into the corners of the house we built together. One paycheck, one paintbrush stroke, one shared dream at a time. That house was more than wood and brick. It was where Arthur carved our initials into the porch railing the summer we married. Where we brought our newborn son, Daniel, home from the hospital. Where we spent quiet evenings listening to cicadas, believing we'd grow old on that same porch swing. But life is rarely kind enough to let a story stay peaceful. After Arthur passed, the house felt impossibly big and terribly quiet. Still, I kept it warm, kept it tidy, kept it alive, because letting it fall apart felt like letting him fade from the world. Then came the night Daniel returned. It was raining, one of those southern downpours that swallow up the sky. I opened the door to find him standing there soaked through. Ice-tired in a way no young man should be. His wife, Lily, hovered behind him, clutching her pregnant belly, mascara running in streaks. They'd lost his job, their apartment, their savings. Everything had collapsed in a matter of months. "Mom, we didn't know where else to go," he whispered. I didn't ask how long they planned to stay. I didn't ask why they hadn't called sooner. I just stepped aside and said the same words I'd said his entire childhood. "Come in. This house always has room for you." In that moment, I believed I was doing the right thing. And for a while, it felt like I was. Lily thanked me through tears. Daniel promised he'd get back on his feet. I prepared the downstairs bedroom. The one Arthur always loved because the morning sun poured in like honey. I made space in the dresser, rearranged the kitchen, and took extra shifts at the school library to stretch my pension further. Helping them felt natural. They were family. And family, I believed, deserved patience. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. 7 years. 7 years of sharing my home, my table, my quiet routines. 7 years of watching my grandchildren grow from babies to bright, beautiful children. 7 years of telling myself that one day things would shift back. That Daniel would stand tall again. That Lily would soften toward me. That this sacrifice was temporary. I didn't know then that I wasn't just giving them space. I was slowly giving away my place in my own home. And it would take a $100 million lottery ticket to show me just how blind love can make a mother. When Daniel and Lily first moved in, I believed it would be temporary, a few months at most. Hard times come for everyone, and I was grateful I had enough to shield them from the worst of it. But temporary has a way of stretching when no one wants to look directly at the calendar. At first, I didn't mind carrying the weight. My pension wasn't much, but I covered the electricity, the water, the groceries, and the never-ending stream of baby supplies. I told myself it was natural, a mother supporting her child through a storm. And when Ava was born, tiny, pink, and perfect, I felt like the universe had handed me a reason to keep going. I held her every night while Lily slept, rocked her through colic, hummed Arthur's favorite lullaby until her breathing softened against my shoulder. Being needed felt good. At least in the beginning. But slowly, almost invisibly, the balance began to shift. Lily reorganized the entire kitchen one morning without asking. She labeled shelves as if I were a guest in my own home. Kids' snacks, Daniel's meals, Mom's tea. That last one sat on the bottom shelf, squeezed between canned soup and cheap crackers. "It's more efficient this way," she said, flashing a too bright smile. Efficient for whom, she didn't say. Then came the rules. No sweets for the kids at night. No baking during her work calls. No leaving shoes near the door. No hanging laundry where the neighbors could see. Every statement began with Mom, but the tone made it clear she didn't mean it warmly. She said Mom the way someone might say maid. Daniel, for his part, floated between small jobs, delivery routes, construction shifts, part-time engineering roles. Every time he came home empty-handed, his shoulders slumped a little lower. And every time, I told him it was okay. I made dinner, packed lunches, slipped money into his jacket pockets so he wouldn't feel ashamed. I thought love meant cushioning someone from their failures. I didn't realize it sometimes enables them. When Micah arrived 2 years later, Lily quit her job entirely. "It's better for the kids," she insisted, though she spent most days scrolling through her phone while I chased toddlers around the living room and folded piles of laundry that never seemed to end. Still, I held my tongue. They were young, exhausted, and overwhelmed. I remembered those years with Daniel, messy, joyful, sleepless. I wanted to help them breathe, but helping slowly evolved into serving. The turning point came the day Lily tapped her manicured nails against the dining table and said too casually, "I need a quiet place to work. The baby is too distracting. Maybe you could move upstairs? The attic is more private." The attic. The space Arthur and I once used for storage. The place where summer heat collected like a furnace. I stared at her, waiting for Daniel to say something. Anything. He didn't. So I moved my things, packed neatly into boxes I'd once stored Christmas decorations in. I swept cobwebs, pushed aside trunks, taped blankets over the drafty windows. Lily converted my old bedroom into what she called her home office, though I rarely saw her working in it. Up in the attic, the ceiling sagged just low enough to make me stoop. The walls held the smell of dust and forgotten seasons. But I kept telling myself this was temporary too. After all, family sacrifices for each other. That's what I believed. Downstairs, life continued without me. Lily hosted adults-only dinners, telling me she'd saved me a plate in the kitchen. I could hear the clinking glasses and bursts of laughter through the walls while I ate alone under a yellow bulb that buzzed faintly. Ava, sweet Ava, used to run into my arms every morning. Then Lily began correcting her. "Call her Miss Eleanor. Grandma sounds old. Modern families use names." The first time Ava said Miss Eleanor, she hesitated, confused, as if she sensed something wrong. I laughed it off, hugged her, told her she could call me anything she liked. But that night, in the attic, I cried into a pillow so thin I could feel the feathers poking through. I didn't resent my grandchildren. They loved me in the way only children can, with warmth, with innocence, with unfiltered joy. But I could feel Lily rewriting my place in their lives, one small correction at a time. The household expenses kept climbing, and Daniel rarely contributed more than he took. When I brought it up gently, he looked away and mumbled excuses: bad economy, unstable hours, the company downsizing. I didn't press him. Seeing shame on my son's face felt worse than any financial strain. So month after month, I paid the bills, full of quiet hope that eventually they'd find their footing, and I could reclaim a bit of my life. But instead, the house grew smaller around me. My voice mattered less. My needs were an afterthought. I became the hands that cooked, the arms that soothed, the wallet that filled gaps no one else wanted to look at. Looking back, I see how each small surrender carved away a piece of me, until the woman who once filled that home with strength and laughter was sleeping in an attic, whispering apologies for taking up space in her own house. But I kept waiting, kept believing, kept loving. I didn't know yet that all those years of sacrifice would become the very evidence of how completely they'd forgotten who I was, and how much I had given. Ava's 10th birthday arrived on one of those crisp spring mornings where everything feels full of possibility. She came into the kitchen a week earlier, eyes bright, pointing at a turquoise bicycle displayed in the window of the sporting goods store downtown. The way she looked at it, hopeful, breathless, as if she were staring at freedom itself, made something warm bloom in my chest. "Grandma, if I had that bike, I'd never be late for school again," she giggled, twirling one of her pigtails. I smiled. "We'll see, sweetheart." Her birthday was still days away, but I started planning immediately. My pension was stretched thin, but I tightened my own budget. Cheaper groceries, no morning coffee runs, patching up my worn shoes instead of replacing them. I wanted her to have a memory, something bright and unforgettable. Arthur always said a single magical moment in childhood could light up an entire lifetime. 3 days before her birthday, I walked into the shop and bought the exact bike she'd dreamed of. Turquoise frame, white wicker basket, silver streamers dancing off the handlebars. I wrapped it in sunflower-patterned paper, tied a white ribbon around the bow, and hid it behind old boxes in the garage. Every time I thought about Ava's reaction, my heart fluttered a little. On the morning of her birthday, I woke up early, earlier than usual. I made heart-shaped pancakes with strawberries, set out white roses, and arranged pastel balloons by the window. For once, the house felt alive again, like it remembered how to celebrate. Ava nearly flew down the stairs, throwing her arms around me. "Grandma, you remembered." "Of course I did, darling," I said, hugging her tightly. Then Lily walked in. She scanned the decorations, her brow tightening as if joy were clutter. She opened the fridge, poured herself orange juice and said, "Mom, this is a lot. We agreed on no big celebrations this year. We want to teach Ava about saving." I kept my voice gentle. "It didn't cost much. Just breakfast." Her gaze sharpened. "And what about the gift? I told you, nothing expensive. We don't want you buying affection." The accusation hit like a slap. Ava's smile faltered. I swallowed the sting. "It's a small present, Lily. Nothing extravagant." But she didn't believe me, not really. And she didn't like not knowing. That afternoon, when Daniel brought the kids home from school, I couldn't wait anymore. I took Ava's hand and led her to the garage. My heart thumped like it did when I was a girl sneaking out past curfew. I pulled the old cloth away with a flourish. Ava gasped, a sound of pure, unfiltered joy. "It's really mine? Happy birthday, sweetheart." She hugged me so tightly I felt her heartbeat against my chest. For that one moment, everything, every sacrifice, every long night, felt worth it. Then Lily's voice cut through the air like a blade. "What is this?" She stalked toward us, her eyes flicking from the bike to my face. "I told you. We have parenting rules." I steadied my tone. "It's just a bike, Lily." "That's not the point," she snapped. "The point is you don't follow instructions. You did this to show me up." Ava clutched my hand. "Mom, please. I'll take care of it. I won't ask for anything else." Her small voice trembled. But Lily crouched to her eye level, smile tight. "You don't need this, sweetie." Grandma overstepped. Again. When Ava burst into tears, something inside me cracked quietly, like thin ice under pressure. Lily straightened, crossed her arms and ordered, "Return it. Today." So I walked the bike back to the store, sunflower wrapping torn by the wind, ribbon dragging in the dirt. Every step felt heavier than the last. The clerk asked if something was wrong. I forced a smile. The little girl changed her mind. But the truth was, this family was changing into something I barely recognized. And that birthday was the first time I wondered if Lily had ever really seen me as family at all. 3 nights after Ava's birthday, the house was unusually quiet. Lily had whisked the children away to some school fundraiser, and Daniel was working a late shift. I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the small cake I'd planned to serve that morning. The cake Ava never got to enjoy. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence. I needed air. Not an escape, not a break, just air that didn't taste like swallowed words. So I walked to the corner store where Arthur and I used to buy milk after evening walks. The familiar hum of the old freezer greeted me, along with Mr. Ramos behind the counter. He gave me a warm smile. "Rough night, Miss Eleanor? Coffee on the house?" I shook my head. I wasn't in the mood for comfort. My eyes drifted to the lottery sign, a bright poster taped crookedly to the register. Jackpot. $100 million. Drawing tomorrow night. Something in me stirred. Not hope exactly, just a quiet impulse, like placing a pebble into a pond and watching the ripples spread. "1 ticket, please," I said. The numbers came to me automatically, the ones I'd played for years. Arthur's birthday. My birthday. Our anniversary. Daniel's birthday. Ava's and Micah's. Family numbers. Family history. I signed the back out of habit, my handwriting shaky but clear. Eleanor M. Whitfield. Arthur used to say, "Always sign your name. A signature is the only truth the world can't argue with." I smiled faintly at the memory. When I returned home, the house was still empty. I set the ticket down on the kitchen counter while putting away a few groceries, then went upstairs to rest my back. I didn't think much of it. I didn't hide it. Why would I? A lottery ticket felt like nothing more than a slip of paper with a daydream scribbled on it. The next morning, everything changed. I woke to Lily's shrill voice echoing through the house. "Daniel! Get up right now." For a moment, I thought something terrible had happened. Then I heard laughter, wild hysterical laughter. I stepped to the landing, peering down the stairs. There they were. Lily clutching that lottery ticket with trembling hands. Daniel pacing in circles like he couldn't breathe. The kitchen was bright with early sunlight, but the air felt charged electric. "We won!" Lily screamed. "Daniel, oh my God. We won $100 million. She waved the ticket like a victory flag. He grabbed her shoulders, eyes wide with disbelief. "Is this real? Is it actually the winning numbers?" She nodded violently, tears streaking down her cheeks. "It's ours, Daniel. We're rich." I stood frozen. Not because of the money had never frightened me, but because they didn't even ask the simplest question. "Whose ticket is this?" Lily kissed the ticket, laughing breathlessly. "Imagine it, Daniel. A new house, cars, vacations, a real life. Not this old place anymore. This old place." The words landed like blows. Daniel hugged her, repeating, "We did it. We actually did it." As if the universe had rewarded their suffering. As if this windfall had arrived by their own deserving hands. Neither of them saw me on the stairs. Neither of them noticed the sign name on the back. Neither of them remembered the quiet older woman who had bought that ticket while grieving a ruined birthday. Lily finally looked up, catching sight of me. Her smile sharpened. "Morning, Miss Eleanor," she said sweetly, her tone thick with triumph. "Looks like our lives just changed. Our. Not yours. Not all of ours. Just theirs." She didn't thank me. She didn't even pretend. She simply tucked the ticket into her pocket, as if I were nothing more than a shadowy extra in the story she'd been waiting her whole life to star in. I stepped down one stair, then another, my voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "Lily," I called softly. She turned, already glowing with imagined wealth. My eyes met hers. "Did you read the name on the back?" A flicker, fear, confusion, passed over her face. Then she smiled. "No," she said. "And it doesn't matter." But she was wrong. It mattered more than she could ever imagine. The morning after their celebration, the house felt different. Charged, tense, expectant. I woke to the sound of hurried footsteps, doors opening and slamming, voices bubbling with excitement. It was still early, the light barely brushing across the windowsills, but Lily was already dressed in a crisp white blouse, hair curled, makeup immaculate. She didn't even look at me when I entered the hallway. Perfect timing, she muttered. We need the space. Before I could ask what she meant, she swung open my bedroom door, the attic room she'd banished me to, and began yanking clothes from the closet. Lily, what are you doing? Packing, she snapped. We're moving. Today preferably. My heart thudded painfully. Moving? So suddenly? She turned, eyes glittering with superiority. We're millionaires now, Eleanor. We're buying a mansion. A real home. Not this old shack. This old shack. The home Arthur and I built, brick by brick. I stepped toward her slowly. You can move wherever you wish, but this is still my house. She paused only for a moment, just long enough for recognition to flicker. Then she scoffed. Not for long. Not when we have money. You don't fit into our new life. You'll only hold us back with your rules and your limitations. She tossed a box toward the door. It spilled open, scattering my scarves across the stairs. Stop, I whispered. Those are mine. I know. She grabbed the next container, this one heavier, and shoved it out the hallway, letting it clatter down the steps. The crash echoed like a verdict. By now, neighbors were gathering in their yards, drawn by the commotion. I saw faces in windows, whispers drifting across hedges. Humiliation crawled hot across my skin. Daniel appeared then, hair rumpled, face pale. For one split second, I hoped he'd stop her. Instead, he rubbed his forehead. Lily, maybe we should just pack slowly. This is a lot. She whirled on him. Are you serious, Daniel? We're millionaires. We have no reason to stay here another second. She'll be fine. She always finds a way. He swallowed hard and looked away. Then Lily turned back to me, voice syrupy and cruel. You should start looking for a retirement home. Somewhere comfortable. She smiled as though she were doing me a favor. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not panic, but a quiet clarity. When she opened the window and tossed out a box of my old letters. Arthur's letters. The paper fluttered like wounded birds across the lawn. One neighbor gasped aloud. A taxi pulled into the driveway then, probably called by Lily, who was eager to watch me disappear. She marched toward me, crossing her arms. We don't want dead weight as we start our new life. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I bent down, picked up one of the scattered envelopes, brushed off the dirt. My hands trembled, but my voice was steady, almost cold. Lily, I said, before I go, answer me one thing. She smirked, impatient. What now? I met her gaze directly. Finally, fully. Did you read the name on the back of the ticket? The smile froze on her lips. A crack in her confidence. A flicker of fear. Then quickly she hardened again. I don't know what you're talking about, she lied. Of course she did. She knew exactly what I meant. But she'd made her choice. So I made mine. I gathered the one bag she hadn't thrown out, walked down the steps past the fragments of my life scattered across the lawn, and opened the taxi door. I didn't look back at the house. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I already knew the truth. Her victory was nothing but borrowed time. The taxi dropped me off in front of a small, aging motel on the edge of town. The kind of place travelers forget before they've even checked out. The neon sign flickered weakly, buzzing like a tired insect. I paid the driver, stepped out with my single worn bag and felt, for the first time in years, completely unanchored. The room they gave me was barely larger than a storage closet. A single bed pushed against the wall, a nightstand with a cracked lamp, and a window that rattled every time a car passed. The carpet smelled faintly of old coffee and disinfectant. But at least it was mine. No one barking orders, no one rearranging my life, no one pushing me into smaller and smaller spaces. I set my bag on the bed and sat carefully, my knees aching from the morning's ordeal. For a long moment, I didn't unpack. I simply breathed, slow, steady breaths that tasted like loneliness and freedom all at once. Eventually, I reached into my purse and pulled out a small folded slip of paper. It was creased, worn along the edges, but the ink remained bold. Purchase receipt, lottery ticket, April 14th, 7:42 p.m. And beneath that, in my trembling handwriting, Eleanor M. Whitfield. The matching signature on the back of the ticket flashed in my memory, clear as day. I stared at it, letting the weight of it settle. Not the weight of money. No, that part still felt distant, unreal. But the weight of truth. The truth Lily had tried so desperately to bury beneath arrogance and greed. The truth Daniel had been too weak to defend. Arthur's voice drifted back to me then, from some quiet corner of memory. Always sign your name, Eleanor. Sign it bold. Sign it proud. People can twist almost anything, but they can't twist a signature. My eyes stung. I traced the letters with my fingertip. I had signed my name. I hadn't been erased, not yet. I placed the receipt inside the drawer, underneath the motel Bible, and closed it gently. Evidence secured. Not out of spite, not out of vengeance, but out of self-preservation. I'd given for 7 years. I'd bent until I nearly snapped. And that morning, watching Lily hurl my life into the dirt, something in me finally straightened. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fight the way she expected. No. If she wanted a war, she would never see the first strike coming. For now, I would wait. Quietly. Patiently. The same way storms gather strength long before the first crack of thunder. I sat by the rattling window as the evening light dimmed, watching the sky shift from gold to bruised purple. Cars rushed by on the highway, their headlights gliding across the cracked walls like restless ghosts. Somewhere in the distance, Lily was celebrating her imaginary victory. Laughing, gloating, planning a life she hadn't earned. And Daniel was following her like a shadow, too afraid to stand in the light of the truth. But lightning always comes before thunder. And I held the one thing neither of them had bothered to look for. Proof. Not just of ownership, but of who I had always been, and who they had chosen to forget. 3 days passed in that cramped motel room, 3 days of silence, cheap coffee, and the distant rumble of trucks on the highway. I spent most of the time sitting by the rattling window, watching sunlight crawl across the carpet, wondering what my life was supposed to look like now. Then on the morning of the 4th day, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my chest tightened when I answered. Good morning. Am I speaking with Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield? The voice was calm, professional, almost soothing. Yes, I said cautiously. This is Grant Holloway with the Georgia State Lottery Commission. I'm calling regarding the winning ticket for the $100 million jackpot. My pulse quickened. We're in the process of verifying ownership, he continued. Your name is signed on the back of the ticket. We need to confirm a few details to finalize the claim. Just hearing the words, your name is signed, sent a subtle tremor through me. Not excitement. Not greed. Just validation. Quiet, overdue validation. Yes, I did sign it, I replied. Wonderful. Do you also still have the purchase receipt? I reached into the drawer where I'd hidden it beneath the motel Bible. Yes. Right here. Perfect. That will make verification straightforward. He paused, his tone shifting slightly. I should inform you, ma'am, someone else has contacted our office claiming the ticket. A woman named Lily Whitfield. My grip tightened around the phone. She stated you gifted it to your son and daughter-in-law. She also suggested you might not be mentally capable of managing assets of this size. I closed my eyes, swallowing the sharp sting of betrayal. Lily hadn't even waited a full day before painting me as incompetent. Mr. Holloway continued. However, your signature and the receipt fall in your favor. We simply need you to confirm the purchase details and provide identification when you come in to file the claim. I understand, I said softly. And I'll be there. Good. I'll send the appointment information shortly. Congratulations, Mrs. Whitfield. He hung up, leaving me in the shaky quiet of the motel room. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I simply breathed. The first full breath since being thrown out. Later that afternoon, I made the mistake of checking my phone again. The notifications were endless. Messages from neighbors, distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years. But what caught my attention were the online posts. A photo of Lily and Daniel holding my ticket. A caption that read, "My mother-in-law generously gifted us the winning ticket before taking some time for herself. We're overwhelmed with gratitude." A lie wrapped in a smile. Comments flooded in. How lucky. What a sweet family story. What a generous mother-in-law. And one that made my throat burn. Hope she doesn't change her mind and take back what she gave. They had crafted a perfect little narrative, clean and admirable. And not one piece of it was true. The next day, Penelope, my neighbor of over 30 years, called me. Her voice shook with anger. Eleanor, I don't know where you are, but they've lost their minds. Furniture trucks are at your house. A brand new SUV just got delivered. Lily's on the porch posing with roses like she's running for office. And Daniel, he looks like he hasn't slept. I pictured it all. The noise. The lights. The performance. They were celebrating money they didn't have, claiming a ticket that wasn't theirs. Spending it as if the universe had mailed it to their doorstep. Thank you, Pen, I murmured. Just keep an eye on the house. That's all I ask. She huffed. I'll keep both eyes. Someone needs to. After the call, I lay back on the stiff motel mattress, listening to the old pipes groan in the walls. A strange calm washed over me. Not peace. No. But a clarity so sharp it almost stung. They weren't just greedy. They were reckless. And recklessness leaves footprints. By the second evening, Lily escalated her performance. She started a new social media account titled, Living the Lucky Life, The Whitfield's $100 Million Journey. In the first video, she sat in my old rocking chair, Arthur's chair, wearing a silk robe and holding a glass of wine. We've always believed that when you do good, the universe rewards you, she cooed. My mother-in-law insisted we keep the ticket. She said she wanted us to have a fresh start. My stomach turned. Not just because of the lie, but because of the ease with which she said it. As if she truly believed she deserved everything she was taking. As if rewriting the story erased the truth. That night, as I watched her fabricated life unfold through a cracked motel screen, I placed the receipt on the table, smoothing its edges. Let them spend. Let them pose. Let them build their castle on someone else's foundation. The funny thing about castles is that, without a real foundation, they crumble fast. And mine, one small rectangle of paper with numbers and a signature, was the stone they never thought to look under. It was nearly a week before Daniel worked up the courage to find me. By then, the motel room had become strangely familiar. The hum of the old air conditioner, the thin curtains trembling each time a truck passed, the quiet that wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. When the knock came, I knew it was him. A son's hesitation carries its own rhythm. I opened the door to find Daniel standing there, shoulders hunched, eyes swollen with exhaustion. His clothes looked slept in, his hair unbrushed. He wasn't wearing the expression of a man who'd just won a fortune. Mom, he murmured. Can I come in? I stepped aside, motioning to the small chair beside the bed. He sat but didn't speak. His fingers twisted together, restless, searching for something he didn't know how to hold. Finally he whispered, "Everything's a mess." I didn't respond. Silence has a way of forcing truth to surface. He exhaled shakily. Lily, she's convinced herself the ticket is hers. She says you gave it to us. She's already planning interviews, brand deals, a documentary. Mom, she won't stop. The desperation in his voice tugged at something deep in me. This wasn't the triumphant millionaire family Lily had been broadcasting. This was a boy drowning in a lie he wasn't brave enough to correct. Daniel, I said softly, why didn't you tell her the truth? His eyes darted away. I tried. At first. But she said it would destroy everything. That no one would believe me anyway. That you were unstable. My jaw tightened. Do you believe that? He flinched. No. Of course not. He dragged a trembling hand through his hair. I didn't know what to do. The door swung open before I could answer. Lily strode inside without knocking, dressed in designer clothes she hadn't paid for yet, perfume arriving a full second before she did. Her gaze swept the dingy room with thinly veiled disgust. There you are, she announced, tossing her purse onto the bed as if she owned the place. This little disappearing act is getting old, Eleanor. Daniel rose slightly. Lily, please. She silenced him with a single raised finger. Turning to me, she plastered on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We can make this easy. Just sign a statement confirming you gave us the ticket as a gift. The lottery only needs something simple, and then we can finally move on." She reached into her purse and pulled out papers, neatly printed lies waiting for my signature. I didn't touch them. Instead, I walked to the motel drawer and retrieved the receipt. Her eyes followed the movement, narrowing. I laid the slip of paper gently on the table between us, right beside the printed forms. "Lily," I said quietly, "this is the receipt from the night I purchased the ticket. And my signature is still on the back of the ticket you're waving around online." Her face froze, color draining from her cheeks. For the first time, she was truly silent. Daniel stared at the receipt as if seeing it for the first time. Seeing me for the first time. Lily recovered quickly, though too quickly. "You can't prove anything. Anyone could forge a signature." I met her gaze steadily. "Then why is the receipt time-stamped with my card information? Why does the store clerk remember me buying it? Why is the surveillance footage already being reviewed by the lottery commission?" Her breath hitched. You called them?" "No," I said calmly. "They called me." Daniel sank back into the chair, his face collapsing into his hands. Lily's bravado cracked like thin glass. She tried again, voice wobbling. We can still work something out. 50-50. 70-30. Whatever you want, just don't ruin this." I straightened, my spine warm with the strength I'd forgotten I possessed. "I don't want a percentage," I said. "I want the truth. And I want my name back." Lily opened her mouth, closed it, then stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the lamp flickered. Daniel didn't follow her. He just sat there, staring at the floor, whispering, "What have we done?" I didn't answer. Some truths a person must face alone. The courthouse smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper, a scent I'd always associated with solemnity, with truth, with consequences. As I walked through the heavy double doors, I felt every eye in the room shift toward me. Some people recognized me from Lily's social media lies. Others simply sensed tension in the air, the kind that crackles like static before a storm breaks. Daniel was already seated at the defendant's table, shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. He looked as though he hadn't slept in days. Lily sat beside him, dressed in a designer suit she had no legal right to afford, her spine straight and chin lifted in an attempt at confidence. But her fingers drummed nervously against her folder, betraying the fear simmering beneath the surface. When she met my eyes, her expression flickered, certainty cracking into dread. I took my place at the plaintiff's table, my lawyer, Mr. Harlan, offering me a small nod of reassurance. The judge entered with a commanding presence. "We're here to determine rightful ownership of the $100 million lottery ticket, and to address accusations of elder abuse, defamation, and fraudulent claims." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge continued, "Mrs. Whitfield, you may begin." Mr. Harlan rose smoothly. "Your Honor, the facts are straightforward. My client, Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield, purchased the winning lottery ticket, signed it immediately, and has both the purchase receipt and witness confirmation. The respondents, her son and daughter-in-law, attempted to claim the ticket as their own and forcibly removed her from her own home after discovering it was the jackpot winner." Gasps stirred among the spectators. Lily shifted violently in her chair. Daniel stared at the table, unable to look at me. "Let's begin with evidence," Mr. Harlan said, turning to the court clerk. "Exhibit A." The clerk displayed a clear, enlarged image of the lottery ticket. My signature stretched across the back. My handwriting looked fragile but undeniable. "Exhibit B," he continued. The purchase receipt projected next, time-stamped precisely, my card details visible, matching the clerk's register log. "And Exhibit C," he added, "store surveillance footage." A grainy video played. Me standing at the counter, smiling politely at Mr. Ramos, signing the ticket, tucking it into my purse. A moment so ordinary that it could have disappeared into memory. Yet now it held the weight of truth. The judge nodded. "Strong evidence, Mrs. Whitfield." Then came the witnesses. Penelope, my neighbor, walked to the stand with the righteous fury of a woman who had seen too much. She described Lily's behavior the day of the eviction. The screaming, the smashing of belongings, The cruel comments meant to degrade me in front of half the neighborhood. She threw her out like trash, Penelope said, her voice sharp with indignation. No decent person treats family that way. Another neighbor testified next, speaking of how often I'd cared for the children, how frequently I'd covered household expenses, how my attic exile had become common knowledge. Each testimony added another brick to the mountain of truth rising between us. Then came the photos, images the neighbors had taken on their phones. My wedding portrait shattered on the lawn, Arthur's letters scattered in the dirt, Lily smirking as she hurled my belongings from the porch. The judge's expression hardened. This borders on elder abuse. Lily's composure broke. She abandoned us, she blurted out. She left without saying a word. We thought she didn't want the responsibility of the money. My lawyer raised a brow. Mrs. Whitfield was forcibly removed. By you. That's not what happened. Lily insisted, her voice growing shrill. She told us to keep the ticket. She did. Do you have any proof of that? The judge asked. Silence. Lily's mouth opened and closed like a fish starved of air. What about your social media posts? The judge continued. In multiple videos, you claimed your mother-in-law generously gifted the ticket. Can you verify that claim? She stammered. She said it. She told us. Again, the judge repeated, proof. No answer came. Daniel finally stood, looking 10 years older than he had a week ago. Your Honor, he said quietly, she didn't give us the ticket. My mother bought it. She signed it. And Lily told me to say otherwise. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Lily whirled on him. How dare you? After everything I've done for you. Enough, the judge snapped. Sit down. Daniel sank, defeated. Lily trembled with rage. Mr. Harlan spoke one final time. Your Honor, my client did not come here seeking revenge. She simply wants her home, her name, and her truth restored. The judge leaned forward. And she will have all three. He struck the gavel with a decisive crack. This court rules that the lottery ticket belongs solely to Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield. Furthermore, evidence of mistreatment, forced removal, and defamation will be forwarded to the appropriate authorities for review. Mrs. Whitfield is entitled to full ownership of her property, and the respondents are ordered to vacate immediately. Any assets purchased under false pretenses will be repossessed. Lily gasped, then collapsed into her chair, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Daniel's eyes filled with silent regret. But I didn't look at either of them. I simply closed my eyes, letting the sound of the gavel settle into my bones like a long overdue truth. Arthur always said justice moves slowly, but it moves surely. And that day it moved for me. The day the sheriff handed me the keys back to my home. The air felt different, lighter, as if the house itself had been holding its breath alongside me. When I stepped through the front door, sunlight streamed across the hardwood floors Arthur and I had polished together decades ago. Dust floated in the beams like tiny ghosts drifting away, finally released. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. I walked slowly from room to room. The same way one might walk through an old memory. The living room where Arthur fell asleep reading the newspaper. The kitchen where I had cooked countless meals. The hallway where Daniel took his first steps. Every corner carried a faint echo of the life I'd built long before Lily ever arrived. The attic stairs creaked as I climbed them, each sound reminding me of late nights spent trying to convince myself I didn't mind being pushed aside. The small room was empty now, stripped of my belongings, stripped of Lily's judgment. For a moment, I stood there in the hush of the space, remembering the loneliness I had felt, the ache of being forgotten in my own home. I touched the wall gently. It's over, I whispered. Not to the room, to myself. Downstairs again, I stepped onto the porch. A soft breeze carried the scent of magnolia from the neighbor's yard. Penelope waved from across the street, her relief genuine and bright. A few other neighbors followed, offering smiles and warm words. I had been embarrassed when they witnessed my humiliation. Now their kindness felt like a balm. The renovations Lily had begun were already being reversed by a crew hired by the court to restore the property. Gone were the gaudy gold fixtures she'd ordered. Gone were the ridiculous marble decals she'd had plastered on the kitchen counters. My home was slowly becoming mine again. Simple, warm, familiar. Daniel visited a week later, standing on the porch with his hands shoved into his pockets like the boy he once was. His voice cracked when he apologized, tears slipping silently down his cheeks. I didn't rush to comfort him. Some wounds need acknowledgement before they can heal. But I opened the door for him, the same way I had the night he first returned home all those years ago. As for Lily, she hasn't come around, and I'm not sure she ever will. Some people mistake absence for punishment, but in truth it's simply peace. Now each morning, I sit on the porch swing Arthur built, listening to the cicadas humming in the trees and sipping tea brewed the way I like it. Quiet, steady, without judgment. Life feels calmer, freer. The money sits untouched for now, waiting for careful decisions, not rushed dreams. But the greatest reward wasn't the jackpot. It was reclaiming myself. If you've followed me through this journey, through the pain, the injustice, the quiet victories, thank you. And if stories like mine remind you that truth and dignity always matter, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories find the people who need them most. Because sometimes, the greatest fortune isn't money. It's finally being seen again.